Hey everyone, welcome back to the Be a Better You podcast. I'm your host, Allison K. Dagny. I have a returning guest with me today, someone who you may have heard before, Maria Natapov. I'm going to go ahead and let her reintroduce herself to you because we have some new stuff that we're going to talk about today in regards to what she's doing and how she's building her business up to help people. So I'll give the floor to you.
Thank you so much, Allison. It's so awesome to be here. Hi, everybody. As I said, I'm just really honored to be in this space with you all and to have this conversation today. I am a step parenting and a co-parenting coach, which is the new kind of aspect of what I support divorcing and divorced parents with, really at any stage as they're navigating that very painful process on really all levels. And I'm really excited to be certified in a brand new framework called BEH2O. And I'm excited to kind of share a little bit more about what it is. But I just think that the work, Allison, you do is so powerful and it's so needed. And I myself, not sure how much I shared last time and how much people remember, but I myself have been in my first marriage there was coercive control. It was very messy. And back then there wasn't a lot of language to talk about how that all looked and what that was. And it was very confusing to me to the point where when I got out of that relationship, that 16-year-long relationship, I had to tell people, oh, we ended things mutually because whenever I thought to explain what transpired, I just felt, to be honest, very foolish and like people wouldn't get it. And like, I just felt so much shame and guilt. Like, why wouldn't I just leave? And I had no real words to access how to speak about it. So I just said it was mutual.
Mm.
And only years later, when I met a colleague through a networking group that we both belonged to, and we did a one-on-one connection call, and she was sharing that she was on her way out of a long-term marriage, but they had engaged in counseling, both personally and as a couple. And that was when she shared her experience and that she was distinguishing all these behaviors and these dynamics with her soon to be former husband. And that was when I was like, oh my gosh, I wasn't crazy.
Mm.
Oh my gosh, somebody else has been through this. Thank gosh. I felt like so validated. And I just felt like something blossomed inside of me that had
Mm-hmm.
been kind of locked away. And so I just think the work you do is so incredibly important and powerful to support women and detangling all of that and moving forward and really understanding how powerful and incredible they are and that anything they really want to build for themselves is
Yeah.
available to them.
Oh, thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. And likewise to you, because you are doing amazing work right now helping people. And I know that part of the reason that you, for those of you who don't know, the part of the reason that you started out in the step parenting thing is because you are a step parent. So,
Yeah.
can you give everybody a little bit of background about your story and that, and then we'll kind of segue into the work that you're doing now with the co-parenting aspect?
Yeah, thank you. So yes, I was a step parent coming out of that first marriage. I met my now husband in spite of my best attempts to talk him out of dating me and giving him all the reasons as to why he needed a better role model for his daughter. He wouldn't listen. And his actually take was that because I'd had caregiving experiences that I didn't love and didn't fully meet all of my needs, I was better set up to be a caregiver and kind of in that parenting role than I was giving myself credit for. And when I kind of let that sink in after a little while, we moved forward. And so I became a step parent. And actually, 5 years into that journey, my daughter revealed that she was abused and neglected by her bio mom and stepdad. And so she came pretty quickly to live with us full time. It was a year and a half long custody case that was really painful and dragged out. And essentially, she tried to go to family therapy with mom and it didn't work out. And so she requested to have no contact. And then that was 7 years ago. And a year and a half ago, I actually adopted her and she had a lot of say in that
Oh.
choice. And it was,
So she's no
yeah,
longer stepdaughter, she's daughter, your
correct.
mom.
She
Yeah.
is daughter. She's officially daughter. And I it's still very much a journey for her and I think for all of us. And as many of us probably know who have lived through a lot of this, it's a mountain with no top. There's just always new things to discover, and it is not a linear process whatsoever. I think at this point, my husband and I have really solid systems. That's the one thing I'm really proud of is we've built really great systems for communicating and identifying things that we're concerned about and finding best ways to support her. And actually, full transparency, I know I mentioned I'm a BH2O certified coach. We actually enlisted the support of the creator of the program for a few sessions because, again, we recognize we're really close to this. And my daughter is very much on her healing journey. She's now 19. And to best support her, it's very advantageous for us to have access to new perspectives and new information and new ways of looking at it. So, that's really been amazing. And
Wow.
I always think of like, those commercials back in the day. I'm not just the president, I'm also a client for the hair club for men.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I kind of think, I mean, it's not exactly the
Yeah.
same, but I kind of think of it in similar terms. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not just a proponent of this work, I've
Right.
also benefited from it
Yes.
personally, and
Yeah.
it really is
Well,
remarkable.
that
And
should be my slogan too for the work I do because I would
yeah.
never, ever like recommend something that I didn't fully believe in or have
Mm,
used myself. So I think that just is a tribute to integrity. And I think it's really important that if we are doing something that we know what it is and that we're doing
yes.
it and we're not trying to tell people how to do things without experiencing it ourselves. And I think there's a
Yeah.
lot more value in it when it comes from someone who has walked the pathway, who has experienced the difficulties, who has gone through the programs themselves and, actually helped people and themselves and their lives make transformation. So I give you a lot of kudos for that.
Thank you. I
But it
really
also
appreciate
sounds
that.
like too, like as your family has evolved, right?
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
going from like this the step parenting situation to then, adopting her and all of that. So your business has also evolved, right? So it's like kind
Yes,
of the
it's
step
true.
parenting thing and then the co-parenting thing. Like so
Yes,
tell us a little bit about that part, like the BH2O, I think you said
yes,
BH2O. What does
yes.
that stand for?
So thank you for asking. It's beryllium and water. So beryllium is a strong, resilient metal.
Mm.
And so we need that in our co-parenting. And then we also need the fluidity and adaptability of water.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
it's the combination of both that really allow for the co-parenting dynamic
Yeah.
that is needed by
Okay.
children so that they have room to grow, but also have the security and the stability that they need as
Yeah.
well.
I love that. And you found this, and now you're helping people utilize this tool.
Yes.
Um, the thing I wanted to lead with here is because I know we have a variety of listeners, and some of our listeners have abusive exes, people
Yes.
who are narcissistic, who are sociopathic, who are extremely difficult to deal with.
Yes.
So many times, victims and survivors of that kind of person feel like they have absolutely no control. Like they feel like
Yes.
they're backed into a corner. They feel like they are losing constantly. They feel like they can't get through to the other person. They can't communicate with them.
Mhm.
So tell us a little bit about what it is, how you support people and how you help people, and then like how that relates to, you know, obviously there are people out there listening who have a decent relationship with their ex or can communicate with them or can
Mhm.
have conversations with them and maybe they're a little bit more reasonable or whatever. But I guess like I know it's kind of a loaded question, but like
Yeah.
how does it help?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking that. And what you're naming is so common, that feeling of no control, like I'm just a soccer ball being like putted around,
Mhm.
right? Constantly at the mercy of either the co-parent or the professionals, the family law professionals involved, or maybe the system or other demands that are suddenly put on me. That is such a common feeling, I think, for many who are going through the process of separating and divorcing, especially if they have children. That feeling of no control, always waiting, like holding their breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. I mean, it's awful,
Mhm.
right? It
It is.
really is awful. And it completely depletes our central nervous system. So, what's really incredible and powerful about this program is we are approaching it like we're never, ever, ever, ever going to change your co-parent, right? We're just going to assume they're going to be the same as they've
Mm-hmm.
ever been. If they are
Yeah.
a button pusher, they're going to keep doing it. If they're going to drive you crazy, they're going to keep doing that.
Yep.
If they're going to send you, like a slew of messages about all kinds of things or accusing you or whatever they're doing, we're just going to assume they're going to keep on doing it
Mm-hmm.
because we don't have magic fairy dust,
I wish we did.
right?
Who's
We
gonna
all
follow
do.
that up?
Yeah, I know, right? It would be amazing, but we don't have it.
Nope.
So what we do have is the ability to understand ourselves and live in alignment with our values. So the principles are the program from the very beginning. We identify what is your why, your parenting why, what do you want most for your relationship and your co-parenting relationship? What are your goals? And then what are 3 to 5 values you want to instill in your children? So, if and when co parents participate in the program together, which is ideal, and the reason for that is that my job, the way I look at it, and what my hope and dream is to work myself out of a job,
Mm-hmm.
which means I would like to provide a safe container for the two of you to learn and create a structure for communication that is effective and that really meets both of your needs. So if safety is a concern, whatever that is, maybe a limitation of communication is what's needed. Whatever that looks like, I would like to support you in achieving that and creating that and building that out. And then I would like you to use that in a way where you don't feel that you constantly need to like throw the book at the other person or get some legal professional involved to hold them to actually upholding that
Mm-hmm.
communication and those goals. Um, Sometimes, though, nonetheless, even if we go through all the process, the one of the parents might fall out of, right, like following along. And the idea, though, is that each of you through this process, it's a 16-week program, so it's a good chunk of time on purpose because we're looking to build new habits. We're looking to build new ways of being, right? Not just behaving, not just new things that we're saying and not saying, but actually ways of being that create more capacity for us. So, more emotional capacity to deal with the crappy moments, more resiliency, more availability to keep our emotions and our central nervous system calm. Because when that happens, we are much more able to use our creative brains and our whole, right, like our higher brain functions in order to really assess, okay, what's most important? What's going on? How can I respond here? Or what can I suggest that will actually give me the best outcome towards a resolution, right? It's not about creating more conflict and it's really not about who's right, who's wrong, because that's just a losing battle, right? When we get into that, that's it. Like our ego gets wrapped up
Yeah.
in it.
Yeah.
And there are no winners, unfortunately. And most of the time, our kids become the collateral damage.
Yeah.
So, plus our peace, our energy just gets completely sucked out, right?
Yeah.
So, the goal is really like, what's going to help me to be most effective here? So, we talk, for example, about developing strategic empathy for a co parent, meaning not because they deserve it, but because our child deserves the best possible parent on the other side that they can have access to. And so we recognize if we're going to dig in and either blame or shame them or point out how they didn't do something, it's just not going to help them to be their best self. So, how can we support them in being their best self? Not because we owe them anything or because they deserve anything, just for the sake of our children, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's really the guiding North Star. Now, it only takes one parent to lean in. So, because if one person changes how they're responding, how they're reacting, and how they're interpreting what's going on, there is no conflict,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because when we're not engaging in that conflict, then there is no conflict. And that's really the point. So, this program, even though the flagship, as I mentioned, is designed for me to work with both co-parents, I can work with just one
Mm.
if the other party is refusing to come to the table, and it will still be effective because that one parent is leaning in, they're interested, they recognize the value this offers them and their child. And when they do the work, it creates massive positive impact on the entire dynamic.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
that's what I was going to ask, like, because
yeah.
I'm just imagining a lot of the people listening being like, my ex would never, ever
Yes.
go talk
Yes.
to somebody with me,
And yeah.
or my ex would want to, and then like in my case, he probably would want to, but then I would feel uncomfortable because I feel like he would either try to convince you of something, or he would try to, like you said before, like right or wrong, like that sort of thing would start to come into
Yeah.
play because when you're dealing with like highly
Yeah.
narcissistic people or, really
Yeah.
ego-driven folks.
So I just want to address that for a moment. So
Okay.
the idea is that essentially, as the facilitator, say we were moving in the direction of, let's just take you and your ex as an
Hmm.
example.
Hmm.
Let's just say you guys are both interested because you recognize the potential value this
Hmm.
could offer you. I wouldn't be speaking to either of you separately. If I would, it would be exclusively about logistical things of like, like they may contact me and say, hey, I'm no longer available at this time. I could do this time. Like, here's some other options or whatnot.
Hmm.
And that might happen on a one-off basis, but
Hmm.
that's it. So it's not like there's in between session support, and that is by design. And the reason is I need to be neutral so that this works because you both need to be able to trust me. And it can't be that, somebody has my ear or something
Yeah.
like that. It really needs to be that all of our communication, all the work is happening in session.
Yeah.
So
Well,
there's
what
a
would you do if
classroom.
like I could just see my ex like
Yeah.
emailing you like a long paragraph describing his situation and why
Yeah.
this or that? Like, what would you do in that
Yeah.
situation?
And I would just say, yeah, and let's talk about it at our next session.
Okay.
Right. So, because the idea is the shift, right? The magical power in all of this, the transformative power in the structure is that we are exploring together and it's really about learning whatever there is to learn that would serve you to look at things in a new way, right? Open up your perspective, perhaps, or just see things from a new point of view, or maybe understand how your children are impacted by certain things, or
Yeah.
right, those nuances that often just get missed
Yeah.
because it's complicated and because some of these things are so subtle, it's difficult to tease out. So,
Yeah.
for example, half of our meetings, like sometimes we work not privately, but actually in a small group. So in that case, half of our meetings are classrooms with other co-parenting couples, and the other half are what's called a joint meeting, where it's the couple and myself as the facilitator. And so in those classrooms, we're just looking at information, right? We're exploring things together. Maybe we're looking at a vignette and we're identifying what's going on with mom and what's going on with dad. Why do we think they're saying these things and
Mhm.
doing these things? What do they want? What's happening with the child? Why do you think they are responding that way? And what else could either of them maybe have done that
Mhm.
would have affected a different outcome? And things like that, right? We introduce other new concepts. Sometimes we do interactive exercises. And it's valuable to do this in a group setting because we can hear from different perspectives, right? And it creates a sense of community as well, knowing that you're not the only one going through these struggles.
Mhm.
When we're meeting in a joint meeting, we're not getting into who did what. We're really just looking at what are the challenges. Great. How do we think we're going to resolve these? And we're
Mhm.
taking a lot of turns so that both voices are heard in identifying the concerns as well as in
Do you have a
identifying
mute button
the
there? Because
solution.
like I'm just imagining that you would need to have a mute button. Okay, it's your turn. Be quiet. Now it's your turn. Be quiet. Are people pretty
Yeah.
respectful or receptive to
You
that?
know, they are because they want their turn to also be respected, right?
Yeah.
And so the idea is that that is what we're creating. We're creating a space where all voices are respected. And look, it takes time, right? There's no, there, I don't want to paint a picture that this is just easy and like you
Mhm.
jump in and after the first session, it's all resolved. Absolutely not.
Right.
The idea is we are building this capacity and these foundational skills for several weeks before
Mm.
we start to be able to integrate them, right? That's
Yeah.
how the human mind works often too, because again, we're building new habits. And that's also one of the valuable pieces of why there's no in between session support is because if my goal is to support you in being autonomous afterwards and not depending on me or another third party, family law professional, then I have to give you the space to potentially like fall forward, right? So it's like it's not going to be perfect. It may be messy. It may be really uncomfortable. It might drive you crazy. but you are, believe it or not, in small ways moving forward in how you're relating to all this and how you're interacting in this
Yeah.
particular dynamic and what you're building and creating together. And some of it is truly, just desensitizing. Like how many times many of us after our divorce, we see the name on the screen and like instantly, like our body has a very visceral response to that. And it's a terrible one, right? Or maybe we're spiraling or spinning like, oh my gosh, what could they possibly have to say now? What now? How am I going to deal with this? Is this going to cost me money? Whatever it may be. And the idea is to, again, really learn a new way to look at things so that we're not getting caught in those spirals. We're not getting completely taken out by those waves
Yeah.
any longer.
Yeah.
So, another thing we work through is recognizing when we're triggered, often it's a need, like a core need of ours that's being threatened or perhaps ignored.
Hmm.
And so, how can we identify that, which already will lower the intensity of the emotions. But now that we have those insights, we can meet that need ourselves.
Hmm.
So we're no longer dependent on external circumstances or co-parent to do something different. Now we can find our own way to move forward, even
Yeah.
in those very emotionally charged moments and situations that feel so much better to us because we're able to do it with confidence. We know we'll be okay. And we're just generally more satisfied because we're in our values,
Hmm.
right? Like that's the key is, you're going to look back and you're going to be satisfied with how you showed up in that moment,
Yeah.
regardless of what happened. So,
Yeah.
and that's powerful because our kids are constantly watching what we're doing.
Hmm.
So if we want to instill this in them and create a safe space where there's room for their emotions and there's room for them to figure things out, learn how to communicate with different kinds of people. Because let's face it, right? Like they're not going to be safe from it. It's everywhere. Human beings are human beings. They're going to run into kids at school. They're going to run into teachers. They're going to run into eventually colleagues and potentially clients and supervisors and bosses and their own romantic partners and people in their own friend groups. So, this is just something that we encounter as human beings all over the place. So, when we're more equipped with how to regulate our emotions, show up with clarity, and in alignment with our values, and when we can respond to people in the same way, as well as when we can recognize things aren't happening to us. Usually, nobody has us in their target. They're just an individual struggling with their own challenges and their own goals and needs.
Hmm.
When we can see them that way, then our whole experience of the situation changes. And suddenly we have a lot more access to being able to work together collaboratively or having that compassion, again, strategic compassion, because of the fact that we're looking at things in a new way. We're no longer
Yeah.
feeling victimized by the situation. And that's
Yeah.
really where it's about empowerment and it's about resiliency. And it is very skills based, but the skills are all having to do with you and your own, everything that you can control, right? Your
Yeah.
own world, your
Yeah.
own ecosystem.
Okay. So that was a very, very great comprehensive overview, but I have picked out a couple things that I want
Yes.
to comment on. One, I totally agree with you. Like, and I want us to circle back to this, to the skills, like communication skills, because
Yes.
communication is so important. I have a communication degree. Communication, I know the words we use matter, how we communicate, listening is part of communication. Like, all
Yes.
of these things are really, really important. So, I do want to come back to that and have you kind of address that. But first, just as a little aside, because you were talking about the emotion, like not leading with emotion, like how we get triggered, how we spiral, and having like leading with that clarity and those values. And that's so, so important. That is really the foundation of the work that I do with people because, like you said at the very beginning, we're not changing your ex.
Yeah.
That's out of our control. We can only change ourselves. We can only
Mhm.
respond and speak and act in the ways that we have control over. We don't have the control over anyone else. So that really is key of being able to lead with emotional clarity. And I
Yeah.
really, really appreciate you saying that because that is basically the core of what I do and how I help
Yeah.
people, because we're not changing anybody else. And
Mm-mm.
the other thing that I loved what you said was about how it's not happening to us. And I heard this the other day in a book I was reading. and I can't remember the name of the guy's last name. He does Mind Valley. His name is Vishen something, and I can't remember how to pronounce his last name. I'm sorry. But I think it's called The Code of the Extraordinary Mind is the name of the book. It's a really great book, and I highly recommend it. But a woman that he was interviewing, and I can't remember her name. Sorry, it's escaping me. But
That's okay.
the quote is the most important part, and it was um, that the universe is orchestrating everything in my favor. And
Yes.
so when you take a different approach and you look at it like this isn't happening to me to like crush me or destroy me or hurt me or break me down, like no, it's actually there's a big universal God orchestration that's
Hmm.
there to support you and help you, even though in that moment it might feel really bad. So
Yeah,
that part is where you take back your power. That part is where you get out of victim mindset, right? And so kind of what
absolutely.
you're saying is like when we can lead with these kinds of attitudes, it can
Yes.
help us be so much more successful for our families and for our kids
Yeah.
overall. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Did I say
Absolutely. I
that
couldn't
well?
agree more. And I also think too, right? Like when we're able to show some of that compassion and like curiosity,
Mhm.
genuine curiosity towards like what is somebody going through that's
Mhm.
difficult? And is there some way that we can think of to support them or make things a little bit less difficult for them?
Yeah.
That's just like a basic element of compassion that now it puts their defenses at ease, right? Because how do people generally respond, right? Well, they assume the worst of each other, which puts them
Mhm.
on defense, which makes them tense. And now they're just
Yeah.
looking for, and then our
Yeah.
brain is wired such that we're always looking for proof of whatever
Yes,
we
of course.
assume. So naturally, if we're open and curious and leading with that kindness and love and compassion and empathy,
Yeah.
you're much more likely to not only energetically bring that person's defenses down
Yeah.
to put them in a state of calm where they're no longer in survival mode, and but also it's often that we will find some of that coming back to us,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Because what you put out, you get back a lot of times. So if you're leading with that, even in the most unlikely circumstances, you might be surprised to find
Yeah.
moments where suddenly you're getting completely new responses and
Mhm.
interactions just based on the fact that you're showing up
Yeah.
differently,
And
which
I
I
and
think.
I do think I think there's a lot to be said for that. I
Mhm,
also need to be sensitive to the fact that I know that um, a lot of us have been hurt so much that
mhm.
we can be nice, we can do the things, we can be compassionate, and it doesn't matter that
Yeah.
it's give an inch, take a mile kind of thing, and we would
Yes.
never receive it and reciprocate it back.
Hmm.
So I know that there's probably people out there like, yeah, but if I did that, he would totally take advantage. Or yeah, but if I did that.
Yeah.
So there, I just want to lead with that
Yes.
like caveat that yes, I understand, and I know you understand too. There are impossible people out there. There are people
Yes.
who will never
Yes.
be treating us the same way that we treat them, no matter what we do.
Absolutely. And so we negotiate, we literally create our boundaries that support us in carrying out our goals from our why. So we put boundaries in place that we adhere to in order to allow us to be our best selves, right? So we don't lose ourselves entirely in the process of trying to meet somebody else's demands or constantly being nice and pushing our, like
Hmm.
overextending ourselves
Yeah,
really, which depletes us and is not effective. And that's not what we really want to instill in our kids, right? We
yeah,
don't want them to give and give and give and give until they're
exactly.
completely on empty. We want them to be able to work together with people in a collaborative, effective way while protecting their own needs.
Right.
So that is
Yeah.
that is really the point. That's why it's so important. And to your point, Allison, sometimes we may be able to see very surprising outcomes from the other
Mhm.
party. Sometimes we won't, but we know that nonetheless, we are showing up with our integrity within our
Yeah.
values and with our boundaries that
Yeah.
support us, even when
Yeah.
nothing or nothing around us
Yeah.
can change.
I love that. The boundaries piece, absolutely. I think that could be way more effective, especially in a container where it is very um, specific, detailed, outlined, agreed upon, all of
Yes.
that. Okay, so
Exactly.
let's jump back to this question that I had about the communication because I think communication is so important. So when
Yes.
you are helping your clients, like what are
Yes.
kind of the basic things that you're going over when it comes to communication?
Yeah, we have two different tools that we utilize. And really, it's we're also, supporting them to understand how they are interpreting their emotions and how they are communicating their emotions, right? Or are their emotions running the show, or are they the ones very clearly and intentionally stating what they would like to have happen? So for example, there's a tool that we use to help them clarify that, and it's the I feel statement, but kind of on steroids.
Hmm.
And it's because, again, as I mentioned, right, when we're able to get to our core need that's being threatened, it's so powerful. It just suddenly creates so much more clarity of, well, what's most important to us. And when we are clear on what's most important, we're able to speak from a whole different aspect of ourselves when we're trying to communicate with another. So that's one piece. And the other piece is a lot of times we're unintentionally undermining our goal, right? So, for example, if we want to see a parent who is very connected to their child and they want their child to know that that connection is really important and it's a priority and they want to support their child and being able to create bonds like that in their relationships. And maybe so what they might not realize is if they are constantly texting their child or calling their child on the other parent's parenting time, they're unintentionally undermining that goal because it's distracting. And now the child feels like their attention is split because they're trying to be with this parent, but the other parent is constantly reaching out and they're trying to be responsive. And so now they feel like they just can't fully be in one place at the same time.
Yeah.
Or perhaps sometimes unintentionally, right? Like in a heated moment, one co-parent might say, "Oh, your father never remembers your projects," right? Like just out of frustration, like a human moment, seemingly no big deal. Well, to the child, it might feel like, oh, wow, yeah, mom was really, for example, mom was really upset that dad didn't remember. And, mom, maybe they're starting to feel a loyalty bind. Like, in order to support mom and preserve the bond with mom, they need to pull themselves away from dad, right? It just creates this confusion in their little minds because they can't make sense of it all and they don't understand what's expected of them. And they're just trying to do right by everybody and really survive. So those are the kinds of things I'm talking about that we distinguish together, and together we decide what to do about it. So it's
Mhm.
really not directive.
Okay.
What's really unique about this program, even though the structure is the same for everybody, the parents are co-creating what they want to see. Again, it's their goals, it's their values, and they really design what's most important and how this will look. We talk about communication, how much is too much, how little is too little, and what kinds of things do we need to communicate about, what kinds of things do we not need to communicate about, how frequently, what time of day, what
Mhm.
time, which day of the week, like all the things, including which platform. Like,
Mhm.
is this going to be an in-person, like a quick phone call? Is it going to be a drop off, a conversation? Is it going to be over email? Is it going to be through OFW? Like what, right? Like all the details. And we talk about like how it will actually look to carry it forward, right? So not only are they learning the day-to-day skills, right? Like just like you would in a gym, but also like looking to the future, like as we're creating, for example, boundaries, right? How is this going to support you? And what happens if, and we make up some situation that's going to be out of the norm, right? Because we want to ensure that it withstands the test of those really difficult moments, even if they're not likely to happen so frequently.
Mm.
So those are all the pieces we talk about, and I'm just there to support them in ensuring that they get to their goal. But
Yeah.
what their goal is changes. For some people, they might be surprised to say, wow, yeah, we're okay being at a public place for our child at the same time, like maybe a school function or an extracurricular game or activity. For others, they might say the cost of conflict is too high for us to ever be in the same room together. So we can never do that. But how can we, both support our child? Well, maybe they work out. This is totally made up. Maybe they work out that one, they alternate who goes to which event. They literally take turns. And maybe the parent who's not there does a FaceTime call with the child before the event and after the event so that they get to still participate and encourage them and celebrate with them, right?
Yeah,
So there's different ways it can look. And it's totally up to the parents of like what's available, what feels doable, and and not just doable like I can white knuckle through it. That doesn't really work, or that's not supportive to anybody. But actually doable in like, yeah, I can find a way to do this in a way that I feel safe and in a way that I can truly be present and be there for my child.
that's great. Okay, so I'm gonna throw you a really off the wall question.
Yeah.
Because like I'm going through some of this stuff myself, and so do you ever run into or are you equipped to deal with things where money's involved? I know that's a huge problem for my situation. And I'll
Mhm.
just give you like a quick rundown, and you might say, no, we wouldn't deal with anything like that, or we tell you to go talk to a lawyer or whatever. But we don't have anything in our agreement about who buys the kids' vehicles.
Mm,
And a lot of
yeah.
times people don't have that. And when we got divorced, our kids were younger. So now I have
Yeah.
two older girls and my son. And my ex-husband had purchased my oldest daughter a vehicle, but it was a non-reliable vehicle. It was breaking down all the time. It had been totaled twice. And she was about to go off to college, and I was panicking. And I was like, she can't be off to college without a reliable car. So we got her a car.
Mhm.
And she drives that car now, and I pay for her insurance on that car. I had also purchased my second daughter a car, and I pay for her insurance on that car, and I pay for her gas on that car.
Mhm.
And my other son is becoming of age where he's going to be needing a car soon. And
Yeah.
he told me that his father said that I should buy the car. I'm like, I've already bought two cars. And he
Yeah.
said, well, I think that, he's expecting that you're going to pay for half of it. And I'm
Mm,
like, so like things like that, does
yeah.
that kind of stuff come to you?
Yes.
Does
Yeah,
it?
we can
Okay.
definitely address it because there's some other things, right? Those values we talked about that you want to instill in your kids are still a
Mhm.
part of those decisions,
Yeah.
right? And there's very clear messaging too that's being stated, whether we
Hmm.
realize it or not,
Hmm.
with a lot of our actions and a lot of what we say and or don't say. So that would absolutely be something that we could address within those sessions and within the framework of this work.
Yeah.
Um, and and that's exactly like what you're talking about. And I love so much that you mentioned this because a lot of times, like you said, parents get divorced, their kids are of a certain age, and even the very best co-parenting plan is not going to be able to anticipate every single
No.
possible scenario that could
Mhm.
happen and transpire while those kids are, you know, getting their legs from underneath them and going through their developmental stages
Yeah.
because things happen and kids are kids and
Mhm.
that's just what there is. So to your point, that's actually exactly why this framework exists, is so that parents can gain the skills and the tools to together navigate those moments that are not listed anywhere. There's
Mhm.
no legal precedent and there's no like set rule that they have to follow, but nonetheless, those decisions have to be made
Yeah.
and they have to be made with like any other parenting decision that's really difficult is like how do we support our child through this,
Mhm.
but also like don't just condone, right? Like
Right.
maybe certain behaviors or like don't inadvertently, right? Not affirm, but maybe it's affirm. Sorry, though I'm blanking on the
You're
word,
okay.
but essentially when we strengthen, right,
Mhm.
that they're
Reinforce.
more likely reinforce,
Yeah.
thank you, that we're not unintentionally reinforcing something that is actually concerning or perhaps dangerous so that we can properly address all of the pieces in a way that actually feels good, where they understand that it's okay to make mistakes, but also, and that they definitely have love and support and that, they can come to us, but also that we are making the most of these learning opportunities and are handling things in a way that, again, preserves whatever our values are to
Hmm.
preserve. And so absolutely, yeah, all of that is part of it.
This sounds very like it sounds like a much improved version of a parenting coordinator to me, meaning like because you're as you were saying before, like when you're dealing with parenting coordinators, they talk to them, they talk to you, they get back to you with a decision. Like they
Mhm.
essentially are making the decision for you for your parenting,
Yes.
which I don't
Yeah.
love. That was
Yeah.
the main reason I did not want one because I was like,
Yeah.
this is scary to me because he could just manipulate that person into whatever he wants them to think and believe and not believe me and then make their own judgment and decision. It takes away my
Hmm.
parenting. But what
Yeah.
you're saying sounds a lot more empowering, where it's more like we're all working together. We're all trying to cut like, oh, we're gonna have a business meeting and we're gonna talk about what's the best
Exactly.
interest of the business, essentially. Yeah,
Exactly.
except for the
That's
business is the
literally,
kids.
that's exactly it. Yes, you guys are co-CEOs
Yeah.
of the business of raising your children.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. And so to your point, yes, in a business, you need clear structure, clear roles, and clear goals. And that's exactly what you create in the context of this program. And including your co-parenting commitments, meaning what are your goals that you identify together that you then at the end share with your kids in like this really fun celebration and party. And it's really beautiful and amazing. And to your point, it's funny you say that about the parenting coordinator. I heard that a lot, that people just feel like they're being strong-armed into some of those decisions. And naturally, if somebody doesn't have buy-in, it's eventually just not going to work. Maybe even right away it won't work, but eventually, even if, for the sake of moving forward, sometimes people are like, fine, I'll cooperate. Sooner or later, there's going to be that breakdown. And meanwhile, they're not actually learning skills that will allow them to be able to navigate some of those challenges on their own. So, so yeah, this is a great program to do, even if you are working with a parent coordinator for the same reason, because this allows you to live into what does this look like in the day to day? How does this actually work?
Hmm.
And moreover, once the parenting coordinator commitment is over and we're no longer working with that person, how do we move forward with some of these similar things that will likely come up one way or another
Yeah.
in the course of this co-parenting
Yeah.
dynamic and relationship? So,
Yeah, and like you were saying, like you're teaching the skills so that once they're
exactly.
finished in the program with you, they have the skills, which is the same thing that I do with my clients. It's like,
Yes.
I don't, if I have you for years and years and years and years, I haven't done my job. Like, I want to
Right.
teach you the way and then let you go and watch you fly and watch you flourish.
Yes.
Like, I'm gonna kick you out
Yes.
of the nest because I don't need you to be on my,
Yes.
bankroll forever. So,
Right.
that sounds very
Exactly.
similar to what you're doing. Like, let me give you the skills and tools to be able to deal with these things. So that because
Yes.
the thing is like we've never been through divorces before. We've never had to deal
Yeah.
with toxic people like this in marriage with kids involved, right? So it's like
Yeah.
a lot of us are just doing this like
Yeah.
blindly. We have no idea what we're
Totally.
doing.
And it's scary because it's like, well, at which point, are my children in jeopardy, right? Versus at which point do I just give them access to their parent, which I know they need and want, right? Like, so it is really difficult. And so this allows you to make those decisions grounded in, clarity and intention, again, with truly having considered what is best for your kids,
Yeah,
right? So that whatever other fears they're not the ones driving the bus,
right,
basically,
right.
which is,
Yeah,
I wish I had something like
yeah,
this
yeah,
for my first
right. So
foray into marriage. Yeah.
tell everyone if you could give one piece of advice, just like you're talking to, and there's people listening who have these difficult situations, the divorce, the kids,
Yes.
it's trauma, it's all kinds of stuff. Like, what's the advice? What's the one thing that you would want them to walk away with?
Yeah, I think and I've been through this personally, and I've seen a lot of people going through this as well. And I think there's such a fear, right? Because we've already been um, shown how somebody can take advantage of us, or maybe they've betrayed us, right? And there's just such a fear of like, quote unquote, making a mistake.
Mm,
And there's a fear of trusting a new person. And it just feels scary, right? Like we don't want to make an investment and have it blow up in our face, right? We don't want to make a commitment time-wise into a 16-week program, for example. And again, feel like that was just a waste of our time and a waste of our money. And I think though that there's also this piece of us that's like, I've got to prove to myself I can do it. I can do it on my own, right? But the reality is that you don't know what you don't know. And these situations are so enormously overwhelming on all fronts. Like they just burn our resources they deplete us completely, right? Like our intellectual resources. I mean, there's brain fog, right? With all of the millions of decisions that we need to make just on the day to day, never mind when you're dealing with divorce, never mind if you have some of these coercive abuse or narcissistic type of tendencies with any individual on any side of it that you also have to contend with. On top of that, you're looking to rebuild your life. Right now, there's financial things that are involved, and then you're really worried about your kids. Like, are they going to be okay? And a lot of times, most often, we cut out our emotional, right? Like, basically self-care, right? And so I think the key is when you just allow yourself to get curious and lean into like, let me just explore. What could supports look like? What are my options? Right? And just allow yourself to be contributed to,
Mm,
really. I think that's when so much suddenly can open up that's unexpected. And you discover things in yourself, strength and wisdom and courage in yourself that you didn't know was there because you've just been beaten down so much. And you haven't had access. You've just been in survival mode. So I think that is my best piece of advice is you have nothing to prove. You are enough and you are worthy and you have incredible gifts and strength and everything you need inside of you. But sometimes you just need to be in a place where it's a container and you feel like there is support for you to get in touch with that and access that again.
yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly because, if you use like, I don't know, an analogy, if you have a pain in your leg and then that pain starts radiating to your back and then you now have pain up your spine and like, but you could try all the things to try to get better by yourself, but
Right.
if you have the right resources and the right tools and the right people who can say, "Oh, I know exactly what this is," or "Oh, I know exactly how to
Right.
handle this," or "I know, oh, you need to, use this or this sleep device when you're sleeping and it'll pull
Yeah.
pressure off your back." Like you're like, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea. I've been sitting here just taking Tylenol the whole time, just hoping this pain would go away."
Right.
So,
Right.
um, and I have done this too with different things that I've been involved with, like even
Yeah.
building my business, like installing people in the right places, like reaching out, networking, talking to people, right? I know it's different, but it's also the same. It's like yeah, I
Yes.
want to build my business, but like I need support. I need people who know what they're doing. I need experts. Like so
Yeah.
I love how you said be contributed to, which is such a really like that's such a beautiful way of putting it because we do often try to shoulder it all. We also think I can handle it or I can do this
Yeah.
myself. And sometimes we can do it all ourselves, but like you could share the load and maybe you'd learn something along the way, or maybe there'd be somebody
Right.
out there who could really contribute to your success or your health or your healing.
Yes.
So it was
Exactly.
really a great take on that.
Thank you. And just because we can doesn't mean we should,
Hmm.
right? Because all of the I cans, they come with the load. They come at a cost, and we might not always see what that toll is, but
Hmm.
it does take a toll, maybe on us, maybe on our resources, maybe on our capacity to maybe, just be with our kids, right? And
Yeah.
support them through that. So it's really just a question of what would be most effective and
Hmm.
what will be most efficient.
Yeah.
And so being able to be in a place and working with people where all of those pieces are taken into account and um, supported,
Yeah.
to be dealt with, like really actually head on looking at them and again, doing whatever needs to be done, whether it's processing or, okay, I need a better system for how to respond or how to react or whatever it might be. That's just so important. And
Hmm.
again, our kids are watching. So
There.
when whether we're trying to do it all on our own or whether we're like, you know what, I deserve this, I deserve support, and I deserve to not be completely wiped out at the end of each day,
Yeah.
so I could spend time with you.
Exactly.
Very important.
I mean, that's a great point. If we spend a lot of time shouldering it all, we become mentally exhausted, physically exhausted.
Mhm.
Burnout happens. We have jobs, we have responsibilities, we have families to take care of. So, um, to piggyback on what you said, which I think is great advice, just take one step. That's my advice. Just take
Yes,
one baby step, one tiny little thing. Like
exactly.
it doesn't have to be like something massive and major. Like you could literally
No.
get on a call with somebody could
Yes,
get on a call with you. That could be a step in the right direction. It doesn't mean it, at the very least it gives you clarity. Like, do I
exactly.
want this? Is this going to help me? Do I want to pivot and go to a different direction? Maybe I need community support. Maybe I need
Yes.
one something different. Like at least,
Yes.
moving yourself in a direction is key, and you don't have to do it in such a way that it feels overwhelming. It can just be a baby step. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, like for example, I created, because I realized to your point of the baby step, I realized sometimes it's powerful just to kind of dip our toe into something to see if it's for us. Because I can
mhm.
sit here and describe it and sing it praises all day long, but until somebody has experienced this work, it could be
Yeah,
really difficult to fully understand how it works. So that was my experience too. And I had gone through the program and I learned all about it. And nonetheless, doing the work as a participant was very different. So I'm creating drop-in classes just for the first class, but it's pretty comprehensive. It's 2 hours, and it definitely gives you a really thorough experience of what it's like to start to do this work. And it starts from the beginning. So for anybody interested, the next one coming up is Wednesday, August 20th at 5:30 Eastern, and it goes till 7:30 Eastern, and it's going to be quite powerful. It's very affordable. It's $50 to attend. And if you decide actually to move forward on your BHO journey with me, you can apply that cost to whatever you decide to purchase going forward.
I love that.
And so, yeah, it's just an easy, low
Yeah.
pressure, kind of no-brainer way to really experience what
Yeah.
this is like so that you get a much better
Yeah.
understanding than just me talking at you.
I love that. I mean, I do the same thing. I have my online community where people get to know me. I have Voxer support. I have other things that are at a lower investment because it is hard to explain. Like I can tell you,
Yeah.
you can read the transformational reviews that people leave for me, like, but until you actually get to experience, like, or taste or dip your toe in the water, right? It is hard
Mhm.
to explain to
Yeah.
people. And, for many people, nothing has ever worked. Like
Right.
nothing. Like beating
Right.
your head against the wall, dealing with your ex, like, oh, we were in marriage therapy for 20 years and that never worked. Well, why is this gonna work? You know what I mean? So it's
Yes.
like at some point, you can even get a little bit jaded, like nothing's
Yeah.
gonna work for me. So
Absolutely.
having a bite-sized opportunity to kind of see, is this would be a great first step. That would be something very easy that somebody could do and
Yeah.
see. And then at hopefully you'd learn something from it. And then at worst case scenario, it's not for you and you
Yeah.
decide,
And now
okay,
you
I'm gonna
know.
move on to somewhere else. Exactly.
Exactly. You don't have to keep wasting your time kind of
Exactly.
waiting to see.
Yeah, but taking that step is important and realizing that like you said that you are worth having support. You are worth having people
Yes.
encourage you, give you their wisdom and insight and
Yeah.
advice because they've been there, like that kind of
Yes.
stuff is really valuable.
I think too that a lot of times what goes missed on that note is that it feels like, well, I don't have the kind of time or I don't have that kind of money now. But what often people miss is what it costs them later.
Hmm.
Delaying getting that support, getting that experience, getting that knowledge, getting those skills, and really building those skills with intention. All of which, again, is impacting not only you day to day right now, but also impacting your kids and trickling down to them. And so I think that's a lot of times what is undistinguished about making some of these decisions. So even though it feels scary, I can't stress enough, and again, I'm speaking also from personal experience, not just not
Hmm.
just from my professional experience. Um, it's so powerful to get yourself the tools you need, the resources you need early before you build up this whole messy barricade, really like a
Hmm.
wall of barricades that you now have to climb out of and
Yeah.
climb over just to get to the other side or just to
Yeah.
find a little breathing room.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the biggest piece to
Yeah.
consider.
Yeah, I agree, and I've seen it so many times with clients who have worked with me in my one-on-one emotional healing mastery program, and they say, "Oh my gosh, I wish I had done this years ago. Why did I
Yes.
wait so long?" But it's the same thing like if you graduate high school and then you decide you're not going to go to college right away, and then you wait 10 years and now you've got a family and kids and you're like, "I want to go back to school now." And you're like, "Oh, why didn't I do this when I was
Yes.
20 years
Young
old,
person.
like hindsight's
Yes.
2020, obviously, for a lot of
True.
people, but what we're here to do is just present the information, let everybody know that those resources and tools are available and out there, and encourage you to, put yourself first and honor that you are worthy of the support that you need. So,
Absolutely.
well, great. Well,
Absolutely.
thank you so
Yeah.
much for being here and sharing all of this with us. Where can people connect with you? How can they find you? Obviously, I'll put it all in the show notes, but
Yeah.
I'll let you kind of take the floor on that.
Thank you. So, primarily, I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook. I'm on there a lot. So, please feel free to find me, follow me, DM me, connect with me. Happy to kind of chat or offer advice or support or resources or whatnot. Of course, my website is synergistic step parenting. That's 2ps.com. You are I'd love for you to connect with me on there. There's also a form you can fill out to do a 45-minute complimentary call. Again, as you've mentioned, Allison, it'll provide you some good clarity. I can answer your questions and we can really explore what would be the next best step for you.
Okay.
I think often that's kind of one of the challenges. But then, yeah, I just happy to connect you to. I have an extensive network, so if I'm not the person, no problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, just happy to support and help and be a resource.
Awesome. Can you remind everybody about when that $50 course is again?
Yes. So the next one is Wednesday, August 20th.
Okay.
So not this coming Wednesday, but the Wednesday after.
Well, let me see because I'm trying to look and see when our
Oh,
episode is coming out.
no problem.
Uh, Actually, because I was gonna put it out the 21st, but I could put it out the
Oh,
20th.
okay. If you don't mind, that'd
Yeah,
be
I could do it
awesome.
on the 20th. So, okay, so it's today.
Awesome.
I'll just say it's
Yes.
today.
Yes. And I will, of course, share the link. And I do plan to have more of them. So don't hesitate to reach out if that's something of interest. Definitely find me and reach out, and I can share when the next one will be coming up in case this one is not going to work for you.
Okay, that sounds great. All right, well, thank you so much for being here and sharing all of your information and wisdom. And please connect with Maria on her platforms on LinkedIn and on Facebook, and check out her website for more information. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.